Welcome to Stories After Midnight. Today we'll be reading a story called The Forgotten Trauma by Tobias Wade. It's part of a collection of stories, actually, called 54 Sleepless Nights. I'd really love it if you check out the collection on Amazon. There's a link in the description below of this video and this episode. So if you enjoy this story, consider picking yourself up a copy. Well, let's get started. Get off me. Get away. I don't know where to go. An old woman with dark, sunken eyes that appeared to be looking inward instead of out. I recognized my neighbor, Mrs. Nyko, hobbling, swaying back and forth treacherously along the side of the road outside my house. She almost stumbled and pitched herself into the street, but caught herself against my car. I was climbing out as she muttered past, but I leapt after her to guide her back towards safety. "You can't walk in the street like that," I told her sternly, knowing the words didn't quite reach her even as I spoke. "Bad, don't bother me!" She waved a hand frantically around her head to chase off imaginary insects before taking a few uneven steps away from me. Her other hand carried an overstuffed leather bag, which she clutched to her chest like she was preparing to wrestle me for it, although its weight was obviously making it harder for her to walk. "Is there someone I can call to help you out?" I pressed. "Do you know where you live?" She was still muttering to herself, not looking directly at me. Instead, she looked over my shoulder, squinting her cloudy eyes as she tried to focus on something that wasn't there. "Course I know. I'm not stupid," she said at last. "But don't you dare take me back. I'm running away." "Why are you running away?" I asked. It was easy to keep pace with her, even though it seemed like she was trying to lose me. "Such abuse, such torture, I can't stand it anymore. I'm not going back," the woman snapped. "I'm going to be fine on my own, don't you worry. See, I've got some biscuits and a warm sweater and—" The woman was ripping through her leather bag now, but stopped suddenly with trembling hands. "Oh, bother, I've forgotten Mr. Whiffles. Do you think he'll be all right?" "Mr. Whiffles?" "My cat," the woman howled in distress. "I can't leave Mr. Whiffles with that lady." "Nyko, there you are. What are you doing out here all alone?" An attractive and professional woman wearing a blue pantsuit came running down the street after us, smiling broadly with relief. "You had us all so worried, Mother. What were you thinking sneaking out of the house like that?" Mrs. Nyko redoubled her efforts down the street, refusing to even look in her daughter's direction. She was muttering to herself again. "You're lying, Lauren. You didn't worry. Not again. No more blood. I can't take it anymore." The younger woman named Lauren reached out to seize Nyko by the arm to lead her back the way she came. The old woman tried to swat her away as she had with me, but Lauren took the opportunity to snatch the bulky leather bag away, forcing Nyko to pursue her in an attempt to reclaim it. "Thank you so much for keeping my grandmother safe," Lauren called to me as they departed. "Her mind isn't what it used to be, and she isn't supposed to leave the house." "I thought she was your mother," I called back, but Lauren wasn't paying attention. She had opened the leather bag and was dumping the entire contents into a trash bin. I didn't see any sweater or biscuits, just crumpled papers and empty bottles, and broken bits of trash and rubbish raining out. "My treasures! How could you, you awful, nasty woman! I never want to see you again!" The old woman shrieked, pounding her feeble fists uselessly against the blue pantsuit. "Sorry. Thanks again," Lauren smiled cheerfully, waving to me. And then turning to the old woman, she clutched her by the arm and began dragging her toward one of the houses across the street. "Bloody pins and needles," Mrs. Nyko grunted, although she wasn't fighting anymore. She just trudged along behind Lauren, muttering to herself the whole way. "Hot irons, sharp knives, but nothing worse than those bloody needles." The whole ordeal was enormously upsetting for me. I checked in on the house several times that day to always see the old woman glaring down at me from a window on the second floor. On one hand, the bag full of trash made me think the old woman really had lost her mind, but then there was the matter of Lauren calling her mother once, and then grandmother the next, which could be the sign of a sloppy cover story. Unable to find peace with either version of events, I was restless that night until I found myself rooting through their trash bin for clues. The leather bag had mostly contained old newspapers with handwritten scribbles in the margins. I opened the flashlight on my phone to read a few of them. "A burden, not a person. She wants to be rid of me. Punish the wicked girl." Is there something I can help you with? I jumped, startled to see Lauren watching me from her doorway. I hurriedly stuffed the newspaper back into her trash bin, feeling a sharp sting in my hand as something sharp pierced through the debris. It's about my aunt, isn't it? Lauren sighed. She peered over her shoulder, then quietly closed the door and began walking toward me. There was no hiding what I'd been doing. I turned my light back into the trash to see what I'd cut my finger on as Lauren approached. I'm sorry if her behavior bothered you. I know it must be quite a shock to see someone so detached from reality. Lauren said sadly, I've been doing all I can to take care of her, but I still have to go to work and can't be around to watch her all the time. It's gotten to the point where I think I'll have to put her in a home, don't you think? Yeah, she would be safer in a home, I conceded, still staring into the trash. Staring at the sewing kit cluttered with bloody needles, which glinted cruelly beneath my light. There were hundreds of them, each soaked in blood all the way from the tip to the base, where they must have been driven deep into the skin. I slammed the garbage lid down again just as Lauren reached me. Her eyes were cold and narrow when I met them, searching my face as though daring me to mention what I had found. You won't tell anyone, will you? Lauren asked at last. I swallowed hard. Torture was the only word I could force out. Oh, it's not as bad as all that, Lauren said, her lips pressed into a hard line. They're so small you can barely feel it by the next morning. And the hot irons? Lauren flinched. It would only make it harder on her if other people knew what she was going through. No home would take her if they knew how damaged she really was. Lauren reached out to squeeze my hand in a gesture of familiarity I didn't feel. I stepped away from her, not taking my light off her, just watching her hands tucked beneath her arms for any sudden movement. I don't know what I was expecting, but my finger was already throbbing from where the needle had sunk in. I couldn't imagine what the old woman must have gone through, but even thinking about it made me sick. Lauren gave me a tight, faltering smile, then nodded. A home then. It's settled, and I will finally be rid of her for good. She wished me good night, and I watched her walk all the way back inside the house. I waited until the door closed before I called the police. I told them everything that had happened and where to find the bloody needles in the bin. Then I walked back across the street and waited, watching through the window. There was a lot of shouting when they took Lauren away, but I didn't go outside until everything was quiet again. Mrs. Nyko was alone, digging through the trash bin in the dark. Mrs. Nyko, are you all right? I asked her. Got a light? The old woman grunted. I wordlessly turned on my flashlight again, unsure of what to say. She withdrew her sewing kit bristling with bloody needles from the trash. Deserved every last one of them, Mrs. Nyko muttered. What an ungrateful, nasty woman my daughter was. Although she couldn't even remember who I was half the time. All I've done for her over the years and she couldn't even remember. Despicable, lazy, stupid girl. What do you mean she deserved it? I asked. Bah, mind your own business, won't you? Her mind was rotten and she'd never even remember what I did to her the next day. I was getting so tired of punishing her for forgetting things, but the spoiled child left me no choice. Then clutching her bloody needles to her chest and scowling, Mrs. Nyko gave me a curt nod. Thank you all the same. At least now I have the place to myself and won't need to go anywhere to be rid of her. And that's the end of the story. I really hope you enjoyed this short little story. It was definitely a twist I didn't see coming, so I hope you appreciated it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider picking yourself up a copy. I know I said it in the beginning, so sue me. But if you like the video, then maybe consider liking the video. If you like the episode, I don't know what options you got, but hey, I appreciate you listening all the same. A huge shout out to my patrons for helping make this episode possible. And if you'd like to, you can come join our little Discord community that is slowly growing, but it won't take up too much of your time. Anyway, I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.